welcome back to the DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast. I'm joined, as usual, by Archie and Ellie. But you notice, this week we have a very special guest, the driver of the 51 Dale Coyne Racing with Bricklayer Racing car, Sting Ray Robb. Sting Ray, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you on. How are you feeling?
Yep. Feeling all right. We just survived a weekend at Detroit, so happy with that and happy to go to a track that I've been to now, at Road America coming up here soon. And somewhere that I've loved being at in the past, and with the new repave, it should be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So, first of all, I appreciate it's probably a question you get asked quite a lot, but just for our newer viewers and people getting into IndyCar, you already know what I'm going to ask.
Do you want me to start? I don't even need to do that.
Where have you got the name from? Where have you got the name from?
Yeah, so the story goes, and I usually cover up my Honda logo while I'm saying this, but my parents were big Corvette fans, so they decided to name me after the Stingray Corvette. But there's also a longer side of the story, which is kind of the heritage side. My dad's side of the family is from Stirlingshire, Scotland, or at least his heritage is. And so Sting is actually short for Sterling. And then both of my grandfathers had Ray in their name, and so it's kind of a combination deal, and they got Stingray out of it.
Cool. Interesting. There we are. For all of you wondering how the most epic man in motorsport's got his name, there you are.
Yeah, so onto the racing. How did you find Detroit? The new track, the split pit lane. How did you find it?
Oh, man. It was first year issues, I think, were a big storyline of the weekend. But the actual layout was actually quite fun. You have the long straightaway leading down to a hairpin, which was a good passing zone. It just was unfortunate that it was so bumpy offline there. There was only really one lane that you could drive on without, having to worry about breaking a damper or shock, whatever else. But the actual race itself, I was expecting more attrition. I thought that we'd see a lot more full course cautions, but it was really, really tough for some reason. I don't think everyone had this issue, but there were a few cars that weren't able to kind of switch the tires on. And we saw Graham Rahal go into the wall under the caution flag. And quite honestly, it was crazy because I had the very similar experience. I didn't hit the wall, but when the tires cooled down just a small amount, it took so long to get them back up to temp. And even if you were, a ways behind the lead pack, you couldn't catch them under the caution flag just because the tires would not turn on. They wouldn't get that heat back. So it's kind of a crazy phenomenon I haven't seen before. And obviously in the lower series, the tires are more consistent with just the single compound, shorter race distance. But the actual track service there at Detroit was many different variables going into that. You had water blasted concrete and asphalt, and then you also had old asphalt, and you had new asphalt, and you had new concrete and old concrete. So it was just like a wide range of different aggregates that led to the corners being very diverse, and the bumps at apexes of turns and on the exit of turns. It added some craziness to it all.
So which type of track do you prefer? Do you prefer street, road, or ovals? And which one of them is your favorite, race to do?
Yeah, I think I like permanent road courses the best, especially ones with a lot of elevation change. And I'm going to give the typical racer answer. I like tracks that I win at. So my most recent win was at Laguna Seca last year in the Indy Next Championship. And obviously that's a kind of legendary track with the corkscrew and many, many different levels of elevation change there. And I just love the sort of feedback you get from a car on a track like that.
Absolutely. So obviously mentioned one iconic track. You've just come back from Indianapolis, obviously for your first Indy 500. Obviously the driver started for you on the Saturday, unfortunately came back on the Sunday, but kind of how was the whole bumping experience coming back for that second day, then kind of the relief in qualifying for the race?
Yeah, it's definitely not a position that you want to be in as a driver, but looking back, I think I got to appreciate the 500 a little bit more just because it made you kind of see the whole picture of what Indy's about. You're fighting for the top 33 spots in the world to be an IndyCar driver. And so, it's very dramatic and stressful going into that Sunday. You don't want to be the guy that gets bumped. And, for myself, I thought that we were going to be in a better position with my teammate. He figured it out in the last run of the day. We were both almost in that last chance qualifier together, which is frustrating as a team. But, I think it was really cool to kind of see the press that you get from being a last row qualifier. They did the last row party, which essentially is just a roast, and go up on a stage and make fun of you, which was kind of fun, make light of it all. But the whole event, the month of May was pretty incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you must have been
so-
relieved seeing you have that good first run and seeing the other two rails battling out. You must have been, phew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did a good job to put 2 cars behind us instead of just one. Had we been on that bubble, I think I would have been a bit more nervous.
Yeah, so onto the race. It maybe didn't end how you wanted your first 500 to end, but what was that experience like for you, and sort of how much did it mean just to be starting the race? How emotional was that for you personally?
Yeah, like I said, I think because I was a last chance qualifier, it made me appreciate everything a little bit more. But I'm going to say that there's nothing that can prepare you for the 500. There's so much that goes on around it. Just the intro of the drivers and the flyover and the playing the taps and everything ahead of time, national anthem. It's one of those things where it's an emotional experience just as much as it is like a performance. And so it's kind of cool to see both sides of that, because I was a fan before I was a driver, and to be a part of it, I think that I kind of lost the emotional side as much as I did. Being a driver now, I feel like I was more focused on what was ahead. But the actual race was pretty chaotic. There's just a lot going on out there. And when you're doing 240 miles an hour, things happen pretty quick. And the day didn't end as we wanted, but we were fighting hard. We had some issues in the first 2 stints of our race, cording some left front tires, which was unusual. And so we were trying to deal with that, but it was just overall, I think a great learning experience. For a rookie driver, there's not often times that you get to spend that much seat time in the car. They were under the wrong conditions, I'll say, to be a last chance qualifier and have to do the extra runs like that. But I did get some valuable seat time.
So obviously, there's so much surrounding the Indy 500 as a whole, and you pretty much live there for a decent part of May. How did you find the whole build-up through practice and the race day traditions?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Indy is very unique in the sense that we're there for weeks ahead of the race. Excuse me. And the fans in the city are what makes the event so special. I think that when you come to Indianapolis, you're not just there for the race, you're there for the culture experience. And so to say that Indianapolis is the racing capital of the world, I don't think is an understatement, because the people really rally around the whole event. For 2 weeks leading up to the race, you'll see people throwing porch parties with checkered flags on their front porch and their favorite driver's name sitting out on their front lawn. And so it's kind of cool to see the fan base growing here in Indianapolis and kind of see how they show up at the track. And, day one rolls around for the month of May, and you sign more autographs in that one day than you do in the previous 3 races combined. So it is really cool to see how excited everyone is, and the buildup is, all part of the fun.
Yeah, and sort of on that, how did you actually spend all of the time at the track when you weren't on track and maybe weren't doing media commitments? Because obviously there was a lot of stuff on social media about the pickleball competitions. Were you involved in that?
No, I didn't do the pickleball. I actually took that night off as our one night off that we got. So I wanted to just relax. I ended up reading a book and drinking some tea and calling it a night. So it was pretty good to have a day off there.
Yeah. So going back to the season as a whole, how has your rookie experience been so far? Because maybe it hasn't been the smoothest start, but I suppose, have you learnt a lot from your first few races?
Yeah, I think so. I think coming into the season, I had higher expectations than what we've succeeded at so far. Rolling off at St. Pete with a 16th place, even with all the craziness that was going on there, with cars flying through the air and everything else, I thought we did a good enough job to survive and finish the race well. And then from there, I think that our next best shot at something was at Barber. And I felt really, really good going to the Barber race. In the morning warm-up, we were running top 10 for most of the session, top 15 by the end. And that was on race pace, green tires and black tires. And so the red tires there, the alternates and the primaries. And so for myself, that was the first time I'd said that I actually felt like an IndyCar driver. I felt like that I was doing my job and felt like I could go race with the best of them there. But that race obviously got cut short with a mechanical failure. And so for myself, I think that kind of took the wind out of our sails a little bit, and the next few races just didn't go our way. And so I'm glad that the month of May is over, because that was all not the experience that I wanted. And I have learned a lot through it all. And, I think that we're kind of in a spot now where we can kind of focus on tracks that we know, Road America being the next one. Even with the new pavement, it allows us to, have a baseline. As a rookie driver, it's hard to have a baseline and understand, okay, these are the things that we're looking for, the nuances here, there, whatever else. And so for myself, I'm looking forward to the tracks where I'm like, okay, I can settle in. I know what the expectation is. I know what to be looking for. And I can get a car that I know can be competitive around there. So I'm excited for that. I think it'll be fun.
So obviously it's your rookie year and you are teammates with Lil Dave Malukas. Obviously he had exactly the same experience as you would have done last year. So how is it learning from someone who's gone through that experience? And is Dave probably the driver closest to the paddock, or is there anyone else you say you're strong with?
Yeah, no, David's been awesome as a teammate. It's kind of funny too, because like you said, last year we had similar experiences what I'm having now, but we also finished second in the Indy Next Championship in consecutive years. And we also grew up go-karting together. And so it's kind of cool to see how our paths just keep lining up the further up the ladder we get. And, you know, he's a great driver, and I think someone that is underrated in the series, but also he gets a lot of press attention, which is kind of cool to see. And I think that comes from the podium that he got last year at Gateway. And it's kind of cool to see those brilliant moments where he had success, and he also had some tough races. And so it's been kind of cool to see him encouraging me through it all. You know, he understands the rookie aspect of it. And so it's been nice to be able to have someone that has that recent experience and it's applicable, and things that they've learned so recently, they've moved on from and said, okay, this is the expectation now. This is what I did differently, and this is what you can do differently. It's pretty nice to have. And obviously David's a good character, someone that is funny and easy to get along with. And so it's nice to have him in the engineering room kind of cheering us on.
So I read somewhere that you got your first go-kart around the age 5. Since that point, Did you always know that that's something that you wanted to do? And what did your family think of that? Yeah.
So I'll tell you the whole story here. But when I was 4 years old, I watched Travis Pastrana, who is a multi-motorsport athlete. He's, you know, done supercross, motocross, rally racing, NASCAR, and he's good at everything he does. But I watched him on a Nitro Circus video jump a go-kart into a foam pit. And the 4-year-old me saw that and went, oh, that's what I want to do. And so I asked my parents for a go-kart in a foam pit. But for my 5th birthday, I did not get a foam pit, but I still got the go-kart. So we ended up going racing from there. But, you know, most kids, I think that they want to be a baseball player, and then they change up. They want to be a veterinarian, and then they change it up. And they want to be a police officer, and then they want to be a fireman. And there's just stages that you move through as a kid, I think. And, you know, some things stick, some things don't. But for myself, from day one, I mean, even when I was 3 years old, I knew what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a race car driver. And I think my parents initially thought that was just a stage I was moving through, because I'd grown up around, you know, the Corvette Club meetings, the drag races, autocross events that they were going to. So that's what I knew. But once we started karting, I didn't leave that stage. You know, that 5-year-old kid is still the same person I am today. I'm still stuck in that stage of wanting to be a race car driver. And so it is kind of cool to see how the passion has grown over the years instead of, you know, kind of twinkling out. So yeah, it's been very good.
So before every race, do you have a certain like pre-race routine? Is there any like superstitious stuff that you do, or what do you do before a race?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily superstitious. Some things that I do find very useful before a race, because our races are quite long, are get some good food, a snack of some sort, but usually I'm not very hungry right before a race because I'm so nervous. And then a bathroom break. You know, the most common question I get from people is, so you're in the car for 3 hours. What do you do when you have to go to the bathroom? You got to plan around it. Just got to get it over with, get it out of the way ahead of time. That way you're not dealing with it during the race. But another thing that I really like to do is I like to pray with my family before I go out on track. You know, it's a time when I can kind of experience the support that they have for me, and also just kind of get centered around what really matters. And, you know, for myself, I think that's kind of the time when they kind of pass the torch off of like, okay, we've done our job. Now it's time to perform. And, you know, I think that outside of that, those are kind of the essentials for me to get ready to get in the car. And then kind of funny, being an American, I always get in on the left side of the car instead of the right side, because that's just the correct thing to do in my brain. But yeah.
So something we've spoken about quite a lot in our early stages on this podcast is the popularity of IndyCar, and how maybe it doesn't get the praise it deserves compared to the likes of Formula One. What would you say to someone who maybe doesn't watch IndyCar, and what do you think stands out so much about IndyCar that makes the racing so good, and really why the series deserves more popularity than it has at present?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, first off, I think that IndyCar is underrated just because we race on multiple different kinds of tracks. You know, we do ovals, we do street courses, we do road courses. You look at other open wheel series, and they're usually just doing road and like partial street courses where they're specifically designed to be super smooth, super flat, very much inside the FIA rule standards. And IndyCar, I mean, we saw this last weekend in Detroit. This kind of like, I think it'll work. Let's go do it. Let's go race. And so for anyone that's a racing fan, I think IndyCar is a true racing series. You can have multiple teams win. You can have multiple drivers going for a championship. And it leads to great battles on the track. And I think that that's not too often seen, with the different tires, compounds, and different strategies that go into a race. And when caution flags come out, with the car count that we have, you have to be more than just good. You can be the best driver on the grid that day and still not win the race. You can have the best car and still not win. You got to have everything come together, come into alignment, and it's still going to be a hard time. So I think that for anyone that's looking at getting into a racing series, watch IndyCar, because you never know what's going to happen. The racing is so great and so competitive, and there's some great characters. With the new 100 Days to Indy series coming out, it's kind of cool to see the product that IndyCar puts out. It doesn't need the extra dramatization. It is just a great product to show as is. And so for myself, that's kind of fun because I'm a race fan as well. And so I enjoy watching all the products and the media around the series that I'm now driving in, even though I'm a driver in it.
So obviously you mentioned some of your favorite tracks. So you said kind of like Laguna Seca, amongst others. But if you could drive an IndyCar, any track worldwide, what would you pick?
Oh, man. Spa is one that comes to mind immediately. I love Eau Rouge, and I got to go see it when I was around the age of 14. We had a go-kart race out in Belgium, and I got to watch Michael Schumacher's Ferrari Championship F1 car go around, and it was like kind of sprinkling, kind of like a dramatic, ominous kind of cloud cover and mist, and it was just really cool to hear that engine roaring up the Eau Rouge there. And there's nothing like that. You get the old F1 spec motors in there, and it's just crazy sounds, awesome sounds.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a podcast, so it's not all going to be racing questions. What we are planning is, if we manage to get some more drivers on, to make a playlist with maybe a couple of songs from each driver. What 2 songs maybe are your favorite songs, or would you recommend adding to this playlist?
So are we going old or new? Because I am a sucker for old country music, like Marty Robbins. I actually have a vintage playlist right here. I'm looking at it. So if you want old music, let's see. I'm scrolling through here. Marty Robbins, Big Iron is one.
Cool.
And then a newer song that has come out recently and that I've been enjoying. It's by an artist named Forrest Frank. And some people know he's from a band called Surfaces. And so they have a few songs that are pretty popular out there, but No Longer Bound and Lift My Hands are 2 of his newest ones that I can't get out of my head. They're stuck in my head 24/7. I'll wake up in the middle of the night singing them for no reason. It's like I haven't listened to them in 3 days on purpose, and I'm still singing them. So those are some of the ones I listen to most often.
Brilliant.
So just for everyone to get you know you a bit more, I can ask you some questions relating to some random things, sort of a quick fire stuff. So first of all, which IndyCar driver out of everyone has the worst fashion sense?
Santino Ferrucci.
Interesting.
This is a really important question. Does pineapple belong on pizza? Yeah or no?
Pineapple does belong on pizza.
Cancel Sting Ray Robb, everyone, right here. That is end of his IndyCar career.
Did you tell me you don't like Hawaiian pizza? I love Hawaiian pizza. That's top tier pizza right there.
I'm sorry, I cannot agree. What is your favorite flavor of crisp, or as you'd call it out in the States, your favorite chip, your potato chip?
Chip.
Favorite flavor.
Favorite flavor crisp is probably salt and vinegar or ketchup. There's been a lot of Canadians bringing the ketchup chips to America lately, and those are pretty good. Those are really good.
I'm glad to say you've recovered yourself a bit there, so maybe we can keep you for a bit longer. You've been in IndyCar a little while now. You've got used to the personality of some of your drivers. In Indianapolis, you saw you wearing some very fancy glasses, it must be said. Sort of goggles glasses. So which of the current drivers would you trust the least with that pair of glasses?
Oh. Who do I think would destroy him first? I'm going to say Devlin DiFrancesco.
Interesting. If you were
Devlin's a
stuck,
great dude. Don't get me wrong. I love that guy. So I trust him with things, but my pair of glasses that are unique, I think that he would want to keep them for himself.
you were stranded on a desert island with another IndyCar driver. Who are you choosing to be stuck with?
So I actually recently had this question asked, and I said
Oh, wow.
Alexander Rossi because he was on The Amazing Race with Connor Daly. And I specifically remember laughing more at Connor than I did at Alex because Alex had it together and knew what he was doing, and Connor was an absolute disaster. So
Smells
I
like
would
Connor
pick
Daly.
Alex. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it depends on how long you were going to be on the island. If you want a good time, I'd probably take Connor. But if you want to survive, probably Alex.
And who would you pick to rescue you and Alex from the island?
Oh, man, who's reliable? Scott Dixon, the Iceman.
Scott Dixon, yes. Great
Always
choice.
good under pressure.
Absolutely. So one more final question. When I say question, it's more of a challenge. As we get more IndyCar drivers on, we're going to do some little challenges with them. So the first one is going to be the 60-second challenge. So it's your rookie season. It's the first ever time you're going to be in IndyCar, and it's going to be a very memorable moment for you. So in 60 seconds, I want you to name as many drivers from the 2023 field. This can include one-off entries and the replacement drivers. Sting Ray Robb, are you ready?
Yes.
Right, 3, 2, 1, go.
Alex Palou, Marcus Ericsson, Scott Dixon, Marcus Armstrong, Takuma Sato, Alexander Rossi, Felix Rosenquist, Pato O'Ward, David Malukas, Sting Ray Robb, Graham Rahal, Jack Harvey, Christian Lundgaard, Joseph Newgarden, Will Power, Scott McLaughlin, Benjamin Peterson, Santino Ferrucci, Catherine Legg, R.C. Enerson, Colton Herta, Roman Grosjean, Devlin DiFrancesco, Kyle Kirkwood, and oh shoot, who else is there? Callum Ilott, Augustine Canapino. Oh man, I think that's everyone. I think that's all I got.
2 seconds. That's all you've got? That's all you've got. Absolutely fine. There were so many, I couldn't count all of them, but just...
I think there was like 26.
I'll embarrass you
27.
some there. Ryan Hunter-Ray, Tony Kanaan.
Oh, yes, I forgot the
Ben-
500 guys.
Ben Peterson. Don't know if you said Ben Peterson.
I did say Ben.
Carpenter,
Santino.
VK, Daly, all the ECR
I
boys.
forgot the Carpenter boys. I forgot.
Sometime up here,
I forgot the Meyer Shank boys as well.
Sometime on the
Dang,
screen
okay.
here, there'll be a score for what Stingray got. We'll see if any other drivers can beat them. Fortunately, we've got to wrap up Stingray now, and that's all the time we've got for Stingray. Thank you for coming on. It's been a really enjoyable chat with you, and hopefully we'll see you more on the track in Road America and the rest of the season.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on, Danny, Archie, and Ellie. You guys are awesome.